hand out those top-tier scores.
All right, here is our game plan for today. 1. The secret to cohesive writing. 2. Your Band 9 transition toolkit. 3. The trap of overuse. 4. Perfect punctuation and placement. And 5. Mastering exam fill-in-the-blanks.
Section 1. The secret to cohesive writing.
Let's break this complex academic concept down into something really simple. Transitional devices are essentially just the words and phrases that act as the connectors between your sentences and your paragraphs. I mean, think about the word transition itself, right? It literally means to transform from one place to another. So these devices are the cement of your writing. Their entire job, their pragmatic function, is to help your ideas glide smoothly from point A to point B, making absolutely sure the reader never gets lost in your argument.
Actually, writing is a lot like connecting those plastic childhood building blocks. Think back to playing with those. When you wanted to snap two pieces together, you had to look at the ends of both blocks to make sure they actually fit. Sentences operate the exact same way. You cannot just smash two sentences together and expect them to hold up. You've got to analyze the end of one idea, look at the beginning of the next, and then choose the specific transitional block that locks them together logically.
Section 2. Your Band 9 Transition Toolkit.
Okay, so we can actually categorize transitions based on the specific job they do. First up, we have addition. When you make a point, and you want to stack another similar point right on top of it, you use tools like in addition, moreover, or besides. It's basically a giant sign telling the reader, hey, there's more of the same coming. Then we have cause and effect. When one event forces another to happen, you reach for words like as a result, consequently, or hence. With these, you're explicitly telling the examiner that X caused Y. Now, when you're outlining steps or chronological events, your time and order connectors like firstly or meanwhile are going to be your go-to tools. To show how things are alike, you use comparison tools like similarly or likewise. And when you really need to introduce an opposing idea, you deploy contrast transitions like however or nevertheless. So, the absolute most crucial takeaway here is this. You don't just pick a random transition word to sound smart. You have to choose the exact tool that matches the underlying logical relationship between your sentences.
And finally, we've got our summary category. When you reach the end of your essay or you just need to tie up a really complex paragraph neatly, you use words like in conclusion, to summarize, in short, or therefore. These act like a giant bow on top of your writing, signaling to the examiner that you are expertly wrapping up your thoughts. So what happens when you use the wrong tool? Well, let's look at this incorrect example. Oranges are good for health. However, they are good for skin. Now, does that make any sense to you? No, definitely not. The word however implies a contrast. But being good for your health and good for your skin are both positive, similar traits. It just creates total confusion for the reader. Now compare that to the correct version. Oranges are good for health. In addition, they are good for skin. Ah, perfect. The transitional device matches the underlying meaning flawlessly.
Section 3. The trap of overuse.
Now, I need you to imagine a paragraph where the writer forcefully stuffed a bulky transition at the beginning of every single sentence. However, for example, next, in addition, it creates this terrible, choppy distraction. It is literally a traffic jam for the eyes. But in a beautifully pared-down version, instead of throwing in a heavy transition every time, you can just use commas, words like including, and basic conjunctions like and to combine your thoughts. The flow is incredible. Listen, when it comes to transitions at the Band 9 and TOEFL 76+ level, less is almost always more. They should be invisible guides, not glaring stop signs.
Section 4. Perfect punctuation and placement.
Okay,
The golden rule of basic placement is actually pretty simple. Transitional devices are typically placed right at the beginning of a sentence or paragraph, and they're followed immediately by a comma. For example, therefore, comma, the results were conclusive. It's standard, it works, and unlike so many other English grammar rules, this one won't give you a headache. But if you really want those elite scores, you absolutely need to watch out for the exceptions that examiners use to test your true mastery.
Here is a major exam trick you need to be aware of. In a standard transition, you might write, in addition, comma, she bought a book. Simple enough. But if you use the phrase, in addition to, you completely change the grammar. The word to is a preposition, which means it requires an object before you can drop that comma. So it becomes, in addition to the book, comma, she bought a pen. If you just write, in addition to she bought a pen, your score is going to drop immediately.
And we actually see this exact same nuance with the word because. A standard clause might follow because. But if you write because of, you once again have a preposition that requires an object. Because of the rain, comma, we stayed inside. You cannot just write because of, we stayed inside. Mastering these tiny, specific punctuation and placement nuances is exactly what separates a Band 7 writer from a true Band 9 master.
Section 5. Mastering Exam Fill-in-the-Blanks. When you're sitting in the exam, just staring at a blank space between two sentences, you need to execute this specific mental process. Step 1. Analyze the end of sentence A. Ask yourself, what is the core idea here? Step 2. Analyze the beginning of sentence B. Is it adding information? Is it showing a result? Contradicting? Step 3. Determine that logical link before you even glance at the multiple choice options. Remember our childhood building blocks? You've got to examine the shape of both blocks before you try to snap a connector between them.
Let's wrap up with these ultimate hacker tips for exam day. Number 1, always categorize the required function first. Ask yourself, do I need a contrast word or an addition word here? Number 2, don't panic if you see interchangeable words. Phrases like for instance and for example do the exact same job. You can often swap them seamlessly. And number 3, use punctuation as your ultimate clue. As we just went over, if there's no comma immediately after the blank, you might need a phrase ending in a preposition like in addition to rather than just in addition. Let the punctuation guide you straight to the correct grammatical fit.
So, are you ready to construct your next flawless essay? You now have the exact blueprint. You understand the pragmatic function of these connectors, how to avoid the trap of overuse, and those sneaky punctuation secrets examiners always test for. The next time you sit down to write, don't just stack your sentences randomly. Build them intentionally. Because ultimately, exam success isn't just about the words you know. It's about the bridges you build between them. What will you build next?